about nobody.
Try not to.
Hold on, it's connecting. I don't want anything to go out live, okay? That's okay. Let's see. Joe, you're live.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, and welcome to WCEG Talk Radio, the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group, the People's Choice. I'm your host, Joe Flint, all one word, like a tribe called Quest. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so blessed and happy to have with us on the show today two of probably the most distinguished women here in the state of Georgia. We have Catherine Rowell. Do I say it right, Catherine? I'm sorry. Rowell with us. And we have who I'd like to call the watchdog herself on the line with us, Miss Damita Chatman. Ladies, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today on WCEG Talk Radio.com, the Worldwide Community Empowerment Network here on the People's Choice. How are you all doing?
Doing fine. How are you doing?
Doing
great.
Twins.
Yeah, Joe, let me correct that, because you know how we get down here. Let me say council around, give her title. It's councilwoman.
Public servant. I'll take public servant. I'm good.
and let me put it out there. With this interview today, me and with the council, we're friends, but ain't nothing on. Everything is off the table today. This is a business. So thank you, Catherine.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Councilwoman Catherine, we want to thank you so much for joining us. So tell us what is going on in your great city, because listen, I tell people and I tell the watchdog that every time I turn on my Facebook, South Fulton is all over the place. And I see it. Fairman is all over the place. Everything that is south of Atlanta or around the airport area is on my Facebook. And I'm just like, what happened to Atlanta? They're not in the mix anymore. Tell us what's going on.
Well, as you know, we continue to forge forward. A lot of things going on in our city. I can tell you I'm elated to celebrate the fact that we just opened up a premier Publix at Sandtown Crossing.
Okay.
Working on some senior housing that Preswick Companies is bringing online, and we'll be having a grand opening for that here shortly. So a lot of things, a lot of energy. Despite the pandemic, we continue to move forward.
Right. So tell us about, real quickly, as you mentioned that senior housing. It's funny you should mention that, because I just had a conversation with a woman the other day who I think is 58 years of age, and she was saying that she wanted to move into one of those active senior living places, but apparently there is an age bracket that you have to be, I think, at least 62 or is that the same with the new one that you just mentioned?
That is correct. And it's tied to the funding that the developers get for those communities.
Okay.
Is the minimum.
Got you. So that's good information to know. And thank you for that. I didn't know that conversation was going to come into play today, and I'll be able to use that going forward. So ladies, I want to jump into this real quickly. We just saw probably one of the most historic elections that we've seen in a lifetime here in the United States. But there's still a lot of back and forth that's going on from the opposing party about this. Now, I know as an elected official and as a community servant, it's not quite often that you all will render an opinion. But I guess I would ask this question from the thought process of running for office. If you found yourself in the same predicament where the margins are so close, Councilwoman, would you concede?
Well, the law speaks to the margin where you can call for a recount.
Right.
It's sportsmanship. If you're beyond that, it's time to move on.
Right.
The people have spoken, and their desires were articulated at the polls, and people need to accept that.
Right. I agree. We find ourselves in such a divisive America, in our cities, in our state, and again across the nation as a whole. something that was, I must admit, thoroughly surprising to me is that Georgia has done something that had not been done since 1992. And prior to that, it was 1976 under Jimmy Carter, and in 92 under President William Jefferson. Did you really think that Georgia, either of you could answer this question, did you really think that Georgia could finally get to that place where we are somewhat blue? I'm cautiously saying we're blurple because we have two Senate races out there. But did you ever imagine in the past 28 years that we will find Georgia in this place?
I would say I was hopeful. I can tell you that I saw more outreach with this election with voter follow-up.
Yes.
My dad is an absentee voter. We do voting by mail. I had voted in person the first day of early voting.
Yes.
I tell you the number of phone calls and knocks at our door that we,
right.
So I think the push to get people to turn out was tremendous. And
right.
It required, as we go into these runoff for these two Senate seats, the amount of money and the volunteers that are likely to pour into the state is probably like nothing we've ever seen.
Right,
because
right.
It would even the playing ground in the Senate. And if that's the case, our Vice President-elect, Masora Kamala Harris, will get to, vote on tie-breaking votes. So
right.
It's a game changer. And the Democratic Party, I know, will be working very hard to make sure we get 2 Democratic seats.
Joe, let me step in on that. Well,
oh, listen, I was coming to the watchdog. You had to come in on this.
Oh, thank you. I never had a thought that we couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a couple of times, got a little discouraged, but I always knew because I knew the ground game, and I knew that the Democrats and Stacey Abrams, they had a plan.
Yes.
We just had to get the votes out and touch the rural. We forget to talk about the rural areas. That really helped us get across that the finish line. And so Thursday, I got kind of discouraged, and Catherine, counsel, she called and she was like, "It's gonna be all right in a couple," because they started to play politics with it.
Oh yeah.
The GOP. But I guess about Friday morning, 4 days, I was ready for it. And so I'm even going to say, if we go back and do what we did, we can take those 2 Senate seats.
Yes.
We got to get everybody back out to the polls. It's not over, because if we don't get those 2 Senate seats, we're going to be in the same situation we was with President Obama, and that can't happen.
That's a conversation that I, try to share and make people aware of on a regular basis, is that without the Democrats being able to have a good control of the Senate, unfortunately, President Biden and Vice President-elect Harris will end up governing still in Donald Trump's America without the Senate seats. And so it's very important that people get back out. I believe it's January 5th, I think is the date. Correct me if I'm wrong, but back out to vote for these 2 Senate seats here in the state of Georgia. So I want to kind of switch gears and come back, well, still in the same gears, but come back to the metro area. It was said that the metro area alone harvests about half of the vote in the state of Georgia.
Correct.
And that if in fact the metro area turned out, then it could without a doubt carry the state of Georgia and make Georgia that blue state that we seek it to be. And I have known that to be the case for a number of years, but of course the problem had been in years past of motivating and getting the people in the metro area out to actually vote. So I guess my question is, of course, with the help of Stacey Abrams, what do you think was the real deciding factor of this year to make people get out to vote?
I think what happened was when all that with the Floyd shootings, all the police shootings, I think that kind of stirred up the folks and gave folks something to say, we need change. I think that was part of the playing field. I don't know what the council would say, but I think that was part of the playing field.
Right, right.
I think that, I think the fact that how this country has dealt with this COVID-19 pandemic, we're at a point now where many people can say they have lost someone or know someone who's been infected with the COVID-19 virus. And when you look at other countries around the world, you see that the difference was leadership. I think there has been so many polarizing issues. And unfortunately, under this administration, literally every group you can think of has received some level of insult. And so I think we want to see dignity restored at the White House in our leader. And I think people responded to that.
Yes, yes.
I completely agree. Y'all's answers are so right on point. Councilwoman, tell us what we have to look forward to in the days and the weeks ahead in your district and in your city.
Well, on the local level, it's something we need to continue to talk about. Why presidential elections are important in those Senate races. All politics is local. And so when you think about, you know, getting that playground on the sidewalks and dealing with crime, that's your local elected officials. And so we as a community, African Americans in particular, we have to understand every year we're voting.
Right.
Every 4 years.
Right.
And so as it relates specifically to things that we have going on, I mentioned a couple, but we are also working on some aggressive code enforcement efforts in our city. Economic development continues to be front and center for the entire leadership of our city. We recently passed a tax allocation district. We have two of them in the city. It's the first two that have been established, and we're looking forward to moving forward on developing our town center in the city of South Fulton, and I'm super excited about that.
When last we spoke with your mayor, or the master mayor, as he called himself, when last we spoke, he kind of mentioned about that town center and the importance of getting it to you all, and that's exciting to know. You mentioned just a moment ago about code enforcement, and you know, I know, being a native of Georgia and a native of Atlanta and Southwest Atlanta, that code enforcement had been a big issue in the South Fulton area. You know, and I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Damita, but I think the mayor mentioned that one of the issues in the past is that code enforcement on their vehicles had police, I think, there. Now moving forward, Councilwoman, is that something that you all will have? How will code enforcement be able to continue to enforce the laws in the city?
Well, we have code enforcement officers signed across the city. We will continue to address that. It is not under law enforcement in our city, but it is a top priority. And so, you know, some of the areas have not had the attention that they deserve for a very long time. But in order to attract the kind of economic development, we have to focus that, as well as clean city and beautification initiatives.
Right, right.
Let me ask council, well, I know you're talking about code enforcement, and that's a big thing with me. How will you, and when you get these different issues, how will you be able to make them forcible? Because like right now, in some areas, you see cars parked in grass, no tag. And when you go to code enforcement, everybody's giving you a different answer. And I know it was a time that you couldn't have cars parked on the street with no tags. Now you got commercial vehicles. So how are you guys going to enforce that? And will it fall under the police, or will it stay under code enforcement?
Right now, it's under our Community Development and Regulatory Affairs Division. But the community needs to understand everybody has a role to play.
Absolutely.
Are, you know, almost 100 square miles. We are a very large city. And so while you may have, you know, 12 code enforcement, they can't possibly cover all that area. And so it's important for the residents when they see things, if you see something, kind of say something, how we talk about with crime, same thing with code enforcement. We had a See, Click, Fix app where you can take a picture of a code violation. And once that's loaded in the system, our code inspectors have to go out and investigate that. So I'm encouraging as many residents to take advantage of that. And over a period of time, we'll be able to see the impact. But we also have to have pride of ownership in our community and what it looks like.
I agree.
So when we talk about, not littering and, sometimes you don't have to wait on government. You shouldn't wait on government for everything. It's times when it's kind of like a joke in my area that they'll see me walking with a picker and I'll go pick it up myself. And I'm the council person. So if it's not above me, if it's sitting in front of your house, you can go clean that up.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a question, because this will be a question that I'm going to ask the chief too today. Have you guys ever thought about doing what Douglasville is doing, getting your low offenders to go out and pick up the trash and keep the streets clean? Have you ever thought about that?
We haven't talked about that as a body. That might be a priority or something that our chief would look at. I encourage you to ask him to consider that. I know one thing we have done in the city recently, we launched a green team. And so they can troubleshoot when those complaints come in about litter in the right of way along our thoroughfares. They can be deployed in short order. So for example, across our city, we have a schedule, of course, when we're clearing main corridors. And in this particular instance, if we get a call from an area, we can go ahead and address the issue in real time.
Okay. Let me ask this, Joe, and then I'll give it back. I was writing something today to put out, and every time I go to put that out, it just didn't go out. But I'm gonna ask you, have you guys thought about it? And I know this is going to also be on the federal level and the state level. Have you guys put a plan together for the homeless during the winter months? What's going to take place? How you going to get them from under the bridges or just on Fort Industrial Land in the bus stop? Have you guys came together with the Atlanta mayor or even sit down with the conversation and say, we need to get this fixed during the winter months? I say, what about the Atlanta jail? Have you guys reached out to the mayor about that? Trying to work something out?
We haven't, because city's role, I think I've mentioned this before, our charter tells us what the purview of what we can do as a governing body. Human service doesn't fall under that. That falls under Fulton County government. I think there is the opportunity to work with our commissioners on that. I agree with you. We've seen an increase in the homeless population in our city. And so I can tell you in my area off Cascade Road, we've seen that increase. And I've also seen it as you mentioned, in the bus shelters along Fulton Industrial, which falls under Fulton County government. So I think these are all conversations, the resources to service those needs, that money lies with the county and not with cities. And so, I think there's the opportunity. I know one of the things Keisha Lance Bottoms talked about was converting that jail to provide services for the homeless population. I don't know where they are in that implementation plan, but there's a need because, every human being deserves shelter.
Absolutely. And I know you do have some that out there that they mental, that's where they want to be. But when you ride going downtown Atlanta, and that's over in Atlanta, but just riding past that every day, the elected officials, Fulton County commissioners, Keisha Lance, the mayor, they got to feel something because I feel it when I ride. And so I think that the commissioners need to have a conversation with the mayor to kind of keep that off and going before the winter months. If not, we're going to have a real serious problem. COVID-19 got us. So could you imagine other people that's getting evicted and don't know how and got the resources, what they're going to end up doing on the street? So I think it's time for us to have a real serious conversation with the mayors, and I know it lay under the county commissioners, but we all in this together. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I also think we're going to have to think outside the box. Just like I applaud Fulton County for coming up with the mobile voting units, we need to do that and go to the people. The homeless populations you can find them in the streets everywhere. It's not we're deploying social services in a mobile format, and I hope we look at some of those. They're doing that in other parts of the country, and we do know a lot of the reasons that people are on those streets are because of mental health issues, and so something not only at the county level, the state needs to put more resources in that as well.
Absolutely.
I agree wholeheartedly. Councilwoman, I want to kind of go into the business portion of this. As far as I understand, the city of South Fulton is actively recruiting, if you will, businesses to come into the area. But as the mayor mentioned, no more warehouses. As I travel along the South Fulton corridors, whether it's on South Fulton Parkway, whether it's down, what is it? Oh, goodness. Old National, you know, all that area, and even in some places in Cascade area, you know, what types of businesses are you all looking to recruit for the city of South Fulton? Because again, I see in some areas, you know, I see many warehouses still being built, but I don't see, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I say this jokingly, but you all drew me out of the city of South Fulton. I was trying to be a part of it when I lived in Cascade.
We can find your house.
Hey, we find your house.
Everybody's every time you all drew me out of it. I lived in Cascade, but some kind of way that line just jumped and it took me out of the way.
Well, just think, Joe, if we don't get them 2 Senate seats, what you think gonna happen? They can draw us out again. That's why it's important.
Absolutely.
Well,
So
one thing I would say, and I thank you for that question, because there is a lot of misinformation out there. Some of the warehouses that you see were actually approved out of county before we incorporated.
Absolutely.
In my area in particular, we have a couple warehouses going up along Food and Industrial, which is where they belong. It's an industrial area.
Right.
I think we need to have a deeper conversation about what that means to people, because they also bring jobs to the community. I think our question really centered around making sure that there's nothing going on in those warehouses that have an adverse environmental impact.
Right.
I think that's what we're kind of getting at. And so I think we have to have deeper conversation, because I don't think any of us want to turn jobs around.
Right.
Perfect example. I mentioned that we just had a grand opening on the grocery store, 135 jobs for our community. Many of them live in our community.
Right.
As we seek to increase the diversity of businesses in our community, density is an issue for us.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, pre-pandemic, you know, now we're lucky, more people are working from home, but most people in our community, they were going outside of this community to work, whether they were going in town or, you know, on the 285. And so those businesses, the small moms and pops, they wait till we get home to spend money.
Right.
Businesses can't survive like that. And so one of the things I hear residents talk about is, oh, we don't want multifamily, we don't want this. Well, then what you're also saying is you're saying no to certain kind of businesses to our area. And so we have to have real honest dialogue about the mix in economic development. And also for our residents to understand, almost every corporate brand you think about has some kind of site selection criteria that they check the boxes, they're not coming. So it's not always racially motivated, which is what most people think. They just have a formula that's tried and true that they know means they will have success with their businesses. So traffic counts, whether it's household income to determine that you have enough disposable income to buy that latte or whatever. We have to understand that there are a number of factors that motivate a business for coming to any area.
Right, Councilwoman, I think that you just really defined and hit the nail on the head, because I can say in my time of you know, being a host, and just in my time of keeping my ear to the ground as far as business and politics is concerned, it's never been explained to me in that manner. Although I know such exists, it was never explained that there is a module that those businesses use in order to make the decision of whether or not to move to the area. Of course, we know that schools play into part in it, and traffic play a part, and so on and so forth. But again, that module or that model that they use is something that I think that the community needs to be aware of. And I don't mean they need to know that this is model that they're using, but that the community needs to understand it's not just the fact that you, as you put it, it's not racially motivated. This is what they know will drive their business, will bring money to them based on the median income in their community, in your community, as well as the schools and so on and so forth. So that was
And it's interesting, school is not most often a factor. It's the traffic counts. They need to know that, you know, 60,000 people coming down this corridor every day. That's why when you think about development, you'll see a lot of development right at interstates. They know the traffic counts. They know they're gonna get everybody, but if they can get 10% or 15% that'll come off and spend money. So places that have high visibility, high household income.
Yes.
This is another reason why we pushed hard on people being counted with the census.
Right.
To get those numbers. Most of our growth has happened between the 2010 and 2020 census. And right now, officially, they're not showing up on the record. So that census was important to us as a city for a number of reasons, as what we've talked about today in terms of attracting that economic development.
Joe, let's talk about that census. And Catherine, you can tell me what you think. With the census was very important. That's going to determine our roads, our lights, and everything. And when you can't get 100% out of your communities or your cities, what do you do?
The reality is that money is going to another city.
Yeah.
And we're not getting all that we could. So when people say, oh, I wish we had more lights and sidewalks, but if you didn't help participate in that process, we left money on the table that we should not have. When they're planning for schools, they need to know what that breakdown looks like. I mean, it drives so many different factors. And so most cities don't get 100%, but as a new city, it was particularly important. But we're going to work what we have. We're going to, of course, be better prepared next time. Unfortunately, the census only comes every 10 years. Right. But it'll be lessons learned from that.
So, Damita, let me jump in real quick. Councilwoman, do you by chance know what the percentage was?
I was just gonna ask that.
I don't know the total response rate that we got. I know we hit the 60s with self-reporting, and then of course the census takers followed up, and I'm hoping we got close to 80. That was our target. I think, you know, I would imagine it's at least in the high 70s, but we haven't had that official number.
I want to kind of piggyback on the census thing from a national standpoint. So there was a conversation that I had been having with some individuals as we were awaiting Decision 2020 on the presidential election. And there was a concern of some people that the candidates might tie, because if in fact, you know, it's possible that there may have been a tie in electoral votes. And this is, you know, geared towards the census. And so the question was asked, and I explained, they said, well, how then is that tie broken? That tie is broken in the House of Representatives. But the problem would have been if, in fact, you know, the Democrats and the Republicans or Biden and Trump would have been tied. The truth of the matter is Biden would have lost the election based on that. And the question was posed, why? Unfortunately, the Republicans have more districts than the Democrats do in the House. And so kind of what you were talking about the census, and we're talking about congressional districts, although there are more Democrats that are being represented in the current House of Representatives, the Republicans have more congressional districts throughout the nation than the Democrats would have. Thankfully, we didn't get to that place, but you kind of mentioned it, Damita, and of course, Councilwoman, you're talking about the importance of the census. That is why the census is important, and that's why when they go and do the redistricting is important as well, because when one party such as the Republican Party right now has the most congressional districts, if the presidential candidates had tied, Donald Trump would have been the president based on the fact that there are more congressional districts held by the Republicans than there are the Democrats. And that's where the census makes a huge difference in our cities and in our state.
Yeah. And let's talk about these elections that's coming up. Let's go with District 39 right now. And after that election is over, I heard that they're going to be redistricting that area. So that seat is very important. Have you heard that, Councilwoman?
I haven't heard about one, but the census results in redistricting across the board. So it won't just be one Senate district that would be impacted. So I hadn't heard that specifically, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Damita.
Okay. Oh, well, I wasn't talking about just the census, but when this election is over, they're talking about doing some of those areas. You hadn't heard that?
Well, whenever following the US Census, there is always redistricting.
Okay.
And so, you know, that particular district will likely be a touch, but all of them across the state will.
So looking at that district might, that district might fall probably into the city of Atlanta.
Well, part of it, I believe, is already in the city of Atlanta.
But the majority of it.
We really don't know how those lines and depending on who's the majority, it's so many factors. But the fact is, we do know redistricting will occur. What those lines look like, we don't know what they are. I'm sure both parties have already been looking at some of that, but it's going to be also driven by the population count. So
that's why it's very important to get out. And I'm going to say my candidate is, you know who my candidate is, John and Pastor and Daniel Blackman. So it's important for us to get our folks back to the booths, to polls, to get them in office, because it's going to be real crucial down here in Atlanta if Cali and with the Purdue get those seats, and we don't want that. So we got to rally hard. We got to hit the rural areas. That's down in Washington County, Bill, down there in Valdosta, those areas. So we got to go back to those rural areas.
Interesting you should say that, and you make a great point. The runoff date for state and local elections is December 1st and January 5th for the federal races. So please mark your calendars. I was reading an interesting article that came out in Atlantic, and they had kind of broke down who came out for the 2020 elections. And what they found was the biggest dividing factor, not race, but it was rural versus urban.
Right.
And you kind of see that actually on the maps. If you think about how it broke down between Trump and Biden,
right.
Georgia overwhelmingly, I think, 40% favored Trump.
Yes.
So, the Democratic Party, or really our leadership in this country, needs to have a conversation and make sure that rural Georgia is not dismissed and their concerns are addressed. My biggest takeaway.
I have to echo you 100% on that, woman. There has been an issue with the Democratic Party nationwide. Of course, I could speak, to Georgia being a native, but there's been an issue nationwide on them reaching those rural counties, those typically Republican voting counties, rather than in reaching out. And so for me, that has always been the concern of whether or not the metro area could carry the state. It's nice to know that the metro area could, but if you're not taking the olive branch to the rural counties, then you're going to miss the boat or miss the mark in every election season. And
yes, absolutely.
The Democratic Party has to do, in my opinion, Democratic Party of Georgia, but nationwide as a whole, has to do a better job of reaching out. And I'll go a little further back. I believe it was in 2000 or 2001, I had the opportunity to work with the DPG. And even I noticed then that we were targeting the same areas over and over and over again, and not taking any of the resources to go into those areas. Because as you mentioned, when you look at the map of Georgia and look at the counties, there are only about 4 or 5 blue hot spots in Georgia. Everything else seems to be bloodshot red. I mean, all the rest of it is. And it just, to me, the party has not done enough work in those rural areas to get them engaged and involved in the process. Because, as we've seen, my family's from rural parts of Georgia. as we've seen in some of those cities and counties, they shut those places down specifically for election day. And unfortunately, you can't do that in metro area because there's so much going on. But in little small towns like Casita, Georgia, which nobody's probably ever heard of, nothing. Oh, look at you. Nothing is going on that day other than voting. And so that's something that we have to focus a little bit more on as a party as a whole.
Yeah, and you know what?
That's not unique to, I'm sorry, that's not looking at the national map and the breakdown of the electoral vote, same thing.
Yes.
America showed up for Trump, urban or centers that had states that had a lot of diversity. And even if you did a deep dive in those states, it was, their maps look like Georgia.
Right.
The metropolitan areas in those states are what delivered that election.
Right.
We learned to talk across the aisle. This is something in America that's been going on a long time. We talk about working across the aisle. We're not doing nearly enough of that.
Not at all.
Not nearly enough of it.
And I'm part of the Democrat Party, but I got to give a shout out to Latasha Brown, Black Lives Matter, getting the vote out, Stand Down, Wanda Mosley, because they went to those rural areas where now we got to go back. Right, even the Democrat Party got to go back to get those votes. Because I think if we had worked a little bit better up north, we wouldn't have a runoff with Daniel Blackman. I don't believe we would have a runoff. But by he being up there in the Forsyth County, so we're forced for a runoff. And then too, I say this, the Democrat Party got to have a serious conversation about when you have 20 and 30 people in the race, Democrats. My goal is we do a slate. And once we get a slate, we get behind that candidate that we know, but 20 people shouldn't be running for that same Senate seat because it's dividing the black vote up.
There's no question at all that race was going to end up being a runoff race because of that many people in the race. And of course, Georgia has the 50+1 rule that keeps people from being able to, win overall with, just whatever the percentage is. When I worked in politics in Michigan, it was whoever got the most votes. If you had.
I'm originally from Ohio on the same thing.
Right.
And they said that was instituted. I did some research on that because I think it should be that way. One is a whole new election. People put money in races and it changes. And in Georgia, history shows that Democrats have only been able to win one time with that. So while we talk about 51, that needs to be changed.
I agree wholeheartedly, but that's state legislator.
Yes, I agree. And
they have to make.
They're probably not going to change because the Republican Party has benefited from it.
It benefits the party. That kind of goes to the topic of the Electoral College as well.
Yes.
Everybody's always talked about it's time, which I agree it's time that the Electoral College be gone away with, but it benefits each party. So until those parties decide that it has to be something different, unfortunately, it will not go away. And so that's where the people like the watchdog here and myself, everybody else, we press our elected officials to vote against something like that or vote that out, because now it is causing even a greater divide in the nation, because we're seeing, and as people become more aware of what the Electoral College is and or what the 50+1 rule is, people are becoming very upset and angered by this stuff, because in their thought process, hey, Daniel Blackman or Raphael Warnock or whomever, these people have received enough votes. Why can't we just go ahead and make them the person for this race? But again, and I'll stop with this. We have to go back to the party itself. And it's probably the same in the Republican Party. I don't know. But specifically, the Democratic Party has to do a better job at making sure, like Damita said, maybe putting together a slate or doing something to minimize this type of issue. Because I'll say, Councilwoman, I remember in 2009, I was doing statistical data for the race for Mayor Reed at the time. And again, I lived in the Cascade district. And at that time, there were, I think, registered about 90,000 registered voters in the Cascade area. And historically, only a third of those individuals turned out to vote in the general election. And so with that just being a third in the general election, God knows the runoff election it was going to be not even half that, because people just did not get out to vote again. And that has a great bearing on the 50+1 rule here in the state of Georgia.
Now, I was gonna play devil's advocate because so I like to dive into numbers.
Yeah.
And there is a balancing act about looking at those voter files, right? Because the reality is they don't scrub them enough, so they're not
I agree.
the information to gather. Over time, it may get better now that you have people where you're updating when they renew their license.
Right.
If they don't scrub them, you don't know what's real and what's not often in those lists. You have to look back, the last couple and say, did they really vote? So it might say 90, you really may be talking 45,000.
Right.
I mean, and honest, because there's no way. So I think you have to, of course, protect the system and make sure that you don't have people voting in error, but you also need to be able to scrub those files.
That was, part of that was
and candidates spend a lot of money chasing a ghost that may not be real.
Right. That van network needs to be updated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And hopefully that's something that you would hope you could get bipartisan support to figure out the appropriate way to those files so that you have a true representation.
Right.
Let me ask Catherine about this. How do you feel about during our primaries that you can put out a blast and say, tell the Republicans to go get an absentee ballot to vote in the Democratic primaries? That creates a problem too, because now you're still trying to split those votes.
Well, in some places, they don't have this Democratic Republican ballot. It's just a ballot. And you go and punch your candidates a choice. I mean, you might identify as a Democrat, Republican, or independent, but the ballot is the ballot and you choose. And so, I would tend to lean in more in favor of that, to be honest.
Right. And I think, now I'll have to be double checked on this, but I think a lot of that happens in southern states.
Absolutely.
More than up north. Because again, I worked in politics in Michigan and I cannot remember that was a concern. I may be wrong. I have to go back and verify.
No, you're correct. I've been in politics since I was in college working on mayoral campaigns. And it was so many things very different when I came here to go to graduate school, and I was like, well, what? I got to take what to get my ballot, I do think we need to look at some of these patterns, and they were by
design, right? I know in the California ballot, they don't give you a Democrat or they give you one ballot. I was just blown away when I come here and they asked, do you want a Democrat or Republican? And you knew the difference, because when I was in line, I should never forget, I asked the lady behind me, why your ballot is different than my ballot? And I knew her, and I said to myself, oh, she ain't a Democrat. That's how you do because of the ballot. So I think that needs to change, but I also really need, I think after this election and we get over the January election, I think the Democrat Party needs to have a serious coming to Jesus meeting, because we're going to be looking at that governor's race.
Oh, yes.
And so they're going to probably come hard, but I'm coming hard for, and she ain't said she running, but I hope she running. That's Stacey Abrams. That's my candidate.
Councilwoman, let me ask you, what do we see in the future for you? I mean, we're talking about politics. Is your goal to continue to serve publicly in the city? Do you have any aspirations beyond the city of South Fulton? And you don't have to tell us, but I just thought I'd ask.
I think it's too early to say. It's too early to say. But I will say I love what I do. There's still quite a bit of projects I'm working on in my area that I'm going to see the fruition. But
well, I think
my heart is with the city of South Fulton. So
I was going to say, I think
there are opportunities to move up. We're term limited in the city of South Fulton.
Right.
So maybe at one point in the future, never know. Maybe,
Well, I,
no.
you know, kind of gave the best answer earlier, you know, when you said all politics is local. You know, you can affect more change at the local level than sometimes you can on a national level. And so that speaks, you know, kind of to your character, but I think that speaks to character of those who serve at the local level, because you are more hands-on and you have a day-to-day, face-to-face interaction with the community and with the people more than those that serve us in DC. That's just my. Yeah.
Joe, I don't know if you know, but Catherine, she worked hard being cityhood, so she can just give us a little taste of what she did doing that to make that happen, because I know she had to do this and do that. Could you give us a little bit, Catherine?
I don't know what you want me to talk about specifically.
Let's talk about when you put the annexation
It goes back to
part.
my heart for or passion for community. The reason I got involved in, she'll probably laugh. I got on the cityhood train late.
Yes.
I actually was very concerned about the impact of annexation on our schools. As a parent of my daughter was in 3rd grade when the conversations first started happening. I was serving on the school governance council, and me and many parents were very concerned that the school that we loved at that time, A. Philip Randolph, could be annexed and would no longer be a Fulton County school. We had a great group of parents who loved our school, and we got together and created a group protecting our communities and school. And it was about 15 of us that were hardcore, and we worked really hard to try to educate residents in the Sandtown community primarily about the fact that, you know, the decision they made to sign an annexation petition meant that very well could have meant their school, both Sandtown and A. Philip Randolph, could be closed. And I said, if you're concerned about your property value now, what happens when you have 2 empty schoolhouses?
Right.
And this is also at a time where there was a lot going on, particularly with APS. You know, it was on the cusp of the cheating scandal. Also at that same time, they were closing schools. So why would, you know, they take on 2 new schools, and you're telling me they would get priority for staying open? Just didn't add up. And so Ms. Chatman knows I messed up my ankle for walking, knocking on doors. I sat in many living rooms, many a night, convincing people to take their name off that annexation petition.
Councilwoman Catherine, without a doubt, I'm sure that the citizens of the city of South Fulton are grateful for the work, you know, that you've done in order to get cityhood and the work that you're currently doing. Before we have, I think, about 7 minutes left. Before we do this, I want you to kind of give us a visual, a mental map, if you will, of Council District 1 for our listeners, so we know, because let's just be honest, some people vote and have no idea who they're voting for or where they even live sometimes. So give us a kind of, if you will, a mental thought process of District 1.
District 1 starts inside the perimeter. You know where the Kroger Plaza is, right inside 285. I have the Cascade Glen community next to it, and on that one side of the street. So the lines are very jagged, but basically we continue out to Fulton Industrial.
Yes.
On Cascade, as you get closer to Fulton Industrial Park, half of Cascade Knoll is in my district and half is in the city of Atlanta.
Right.
Half of Danforth Road is in my district, the other half is in the city of Atlanta. So it is confusing. And then we cut over across all the way along Camp Creek, and part of that is not, but if you go at Camp Creek and Camelton Road, on the right-hand side where the new where the new Publix Plaza is, I go all the way down on the right-hand side, pretty much to the Douglas line.
Got you. Okay, very good. Again, you know, I was almost in the running to be a city of South Fulton resident, but that line jumped right across. I said, now how's it across the street from me?
We love all of Southwest Atlanta too. It's okay.
Right. Now you mentioned Danforth Road. Did you say all of it or part of it? Is
half and half. I'll tell you to look for the lights. The lights on the left side.
Oh, so wait a minute. So you telling me where the lights at that city of South Fulton, or is
No,
that Atlanta?
the lights are our city of Atlanta, but don't
Okay.
worry. We have money earmarked under our T-Splosh to
Okay.
make it look uniform.
Gotcha. I
not-
thought I was about to say, come on, South Fulton, y'all.
So Joe,
Yeah.
let me, she ain't gonna say it, but I say it. So really, Kasim Reed, he put lights all the way from
Oh, I know.
that corner all the way down to his, where
He
his
put it down to his
driveway
house.
stops.
I already
Right
know.
there.
Well, you know, they call it Little Las Vegas going down Danforth Road. I'm
Yes.
He made sure that the lights were going down his road. Yes, I am very familiar.
To his driveway.
Yes,
Yeah,
very
right.
familiar. All too familiar. Well, Councilwoman Catherine, thank you so
And
much.
be clear, Loch Lomond is in the city of South Fulton, District 1.
Yes, and I love that community, really do. I want to thank you so much for joining us and being so candid with your responses and your answers. And, you know, I think that more, so you're a public servant, but more politicians could mirror what you're saying, because you know, and I know, and I'm sure Damita will echo, we have a lot of politicians and not enough public servants.
Better say that. You better say it. You better say it.
That serve in our community and in our city and state, and even on a national level. And I really enjoyed, I must say, I really enjoyed the conversation that we had about the Democratic Party. And I hope that they will, you know, open their eyes and see there's a lot of work to be done, you know, because let's just be honest, the Republicans picked up a lot of support from African Americans, you know, this go round, and it's continuing to build. And not because they have the best platform, but because they are showing in some instances that they're reaching out to us a little more. And I always like to tell the story of Condoleezza Rice. I don't know if you all know this, but her father, she tells a story about how they became Republicans. And it was based on the fact that her father was going to vote, and he got to the Democratic polling location and was turned around. Way home, he was picked up by a guy who just so happened to be a Republican, and he was able to vote in the Republican at the Republican polling location. And it was from that point on they became Republicans.
Wow.
And so exactly. And so
No.
I see that happening a lot more with them, and it's becoming very alarming.
Well, I will say that we need to talk more issues than party. People don't do that anymore.
Hallelujah.
And that goes back to the ability to work across the aisle. When you talk issues, there are more commonality differences. Of course, you know, municipal elections are not partisan. And I know in my area, I have, you know, even though it's a predominantly African-American community, it's split Republican and Democrat. I know what the voter files say.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Today, if we're serving community, it's so many issues that should cut across that.
Right.
We need to talk about more of those.
Absolutely.
Issue-based.
Absolutely.
Yes. Do you have anything else?
No, I know. I want to thank you for coming, Catherine. My friend, just to be yourself. So thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. I enjoy coming on the program every time.
Anytime, Catherine. I could just have a conversation with you. What the frogs say. I could sip tea with you any day. You know?
Come on, we can do it. We got a great new donut place we can try. You can come out and try out.
Please let me know. I need a South Fulton invitation since they drew me out of the line.
You're always welcome.
I need an invitation. Thank you so very much.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us, Councilwoman. And Damita, always thank you for being that watchdog, keeping everyone, even myself, in line as we here on WCEG Network. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been joined today by City Council District 1 of the City of South Fulton, Councilwoman Catherine Rowell, and of course, the watchdog of the City of South Fulton. But I'm just going to say she's watchdog of Georgia and almost the nation. With us live here on WCEG Network. As always, we thank you all, and I want to thank my producer, Penny Rogers, for always in the background doing the best. Thank you, ladies. Enjoy the balance of your day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.